Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we are dropping right into a massive, mind-bending juxtaposition. On one hand, we've got our modern, high-tech quest for biological immortality. And on the other, deep, ancient, evolutionary time. We're talking about stretching the human experience far beyond absolutely anything our ancestors could have ever comprehended. We're going to look at exactly what happens when cutting-edge science violently collides with the natural limits of our biology. So let me ask you right off the bat, would you want to live to be 200 years old? I want you to genuinely imagine your own life stretching across an entire second century. Just picture waking up on your 100th birthday, blowing out an impossible number of candles, and suddenly realizing you're only at middle age. You still have a whole other century ahead of you. It sounds completely thrilling, right? But the reality of actually achieving this and then living through it day by day is way more complicated than just adding extra years to the clock. Because, to figure out where we're going, we first have to understand where we came from. Back in the age of the caveman and woman, say 100,000 years ago, you'd hit puberty early, have kids, and by the time you were 26 or 27, you were already a grandparent. Evolution essentially programmed us just long enough to pass on our genome, and absolutely nothing more. 30 years. That was the whole shebang. Section 1. The scale of human time. To really grasp how wild a 200-year lifespan is, we have to look at our prehistoric limits. Living past 30 actually became a biological liability. Think about it. When food was incredibly scarce, the absolute last thing you wanted to do was stick around and eat the calories that your grandchildren literally needed to survive. So you would die, and your body would give its physical bits right back to the environment. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, after age 30, it's all downhill. Our bodies were just never designed to maintain themselves for 1 century, let alone 2. And this brilliantly illustrates our weird little place in time. Have you heard of the Silurian Hypothesis? It's this fascinating thought experiment debated by scientists, suggesting that advanced industrial civilizations could have actually thrived on Earth millions of years ago, and we wouldn't even know it, because the Earth just heals itself and erases the evidence over deep time. I mean, humanity has only been an industrial civilization for about 300 years. We've left traces like CO2 spikes and ice cores, sure, but 300 years, that is literally a blink of an eye. If individual humans suddenly start living for 200 years, a single human lifespan will almost encompass our entire history of industrialization. A radically extended lifespan wouldn't just change us, it would fundamentally shift how we interact with the planet over deep time. Moving on to Section 2, the biology of aging. Okay, let's dive into this breakdown. The absolute crucial point here is the distinction between lifespan and health span. We are not talking about just surviving, frail and bedridden for 120 years. That's just increasing lifespan, which doesn't sound very fun. The true ultimate goal of longevity science is health span. It's about living those extra decades with the biological age, the resilience, and the sheer vitality of a 25-year-old. The idea is that frailty gets compressed into just the final few years of your life, rather than stretched out painfully across decades. Because here's the thing, getting old isn't just one single disease. It's a mechanical breakdown across the 37.2 trillion cells in your body. Scientists actually call these the hallmarks of aging. First up, we've got telomere shrinkage. Telomeres are these protective caps on your DNA. Every time a cell divides, they shorten and fray, exactly like the little plastic tips on your shoelaces, until the cell just can't divide anymore. Second are mitochondria. These are the power plants of your cells, but they produce free radicals when they make energy. This causes oxidative stress, basically rusting your body from the inside out. Third, misfolded proteins. Proteins are kind of like microscopic origami. They have to fold perfectly to do their job. When they misfold, they clump together, which is a massive driver for conditions like Alzheimer's. And finally, senescent, or zombie cells. These are damaged cells that just stubbornly refuse to die. Instead, they sit there leaking inflammatory chemicals that damage all the healthy tissue around them. And the crazy part? Fixing just one of these hallmarks is like fixing one single leak in a roof that has 11 other giant holes in it. All right, Section 3, reaching longevity escape velocity. So how exactly do we fix all those cellular leaks at once? Well, precision medicine is going to have to integrate seamlessly into our everyday lives to catch these silent threats before they even happen. Picture your morning routine a few decades from now. You wake up in a smart bed that's been passively analyzing your heart rate, breathing, and cellular changes all night long. Then you use a smart toilet that instantly checks your waste for very early biomarkers of inflammation or metabolic issues. That data feeds instantly into an AI, which then prescribes and literally 3D prints a custom breakfast perfectly optimized for your DNA and your current cellular needs for that specific day. You aren't just living anymore, you're constantly actively being optimized. And all this passive monitoring, combined with active gene editing using tools like CRISPR, pushes us toward a massive, almost unbelievable tipping point. It's called longevity escape velocity. This is the threshold where, for every single year that passes, medical science advances so quickly that it adds more than 1 year to your remaining life expectancy. Think about that. If you're 30 today, and science moves fast enough, by the time you hit 40, you might have outrun aging entirely. You're effectively running faster than time is ticking. Which brings us to Section 4, Redesigning a 200-year society. Let's say we actually do outrun aging. How on earth does society function? Our current short 3-part story of study, work, retire becomes completely absurd. I mean, choosing a single career at age 20 makes zero sense if you have 135 years left to fund after you hit 65. Instead, your life would become this series of cycles. You might spend 30 years as an engineer, then go back to school at 60, become a doctor at 70, take a well-deserved decade-long sabbatical, and then maybe open a restaurant at 100. It's a total paradigm shift. But we have to look at the other side of the coin, because this radically expanded timeline brings up some profoundly grounded ethical concerns. If the birth rate doesn't plummet, we could see massive overpopulation and severe strain on our food and water. We'd have 6 to 7 generations of a single family alive at the exact same time. And think about marriage. Until death do us part could literally mean a 170-year commitment. Would we still make lifelong promises, or would relationships just naturally happen in 50-year chapters? But perhaps the most concerning issue is the wealth gap. Time is the ultimate ingredient in compound interest. If a billionaire lives for 2 centuries, they don't just pass wealth to their descendants, they hoard resources, property, and power indefinitely. If these age-reversing treatments turn out to be incredibly expensive, we could see a society where the rich literally buy a second century of life, while everyone else is just left behind. Section 5. The psychology of extra time. Beyond the economics of it all, how does the human mind handle the burden of living 2 full centuries? Honestly, after 150 years, after multiple careers, living in different countries, and outliving entire eras of culture, would you even recognize your 20-year-old self? Human memory fades, it blurs. Eventually, that younger version of you might feel less like you, and a lot more like a distant ancestor who just happens to live inside your head. Your core identity wouldn't be fixed at all. It would become incredibly fluid. And what happens to our drive? Right now, our urgency, our ambition, our deep desire to actually achieve our goals, all of that stems directly from the fact that our time is limited. Deadlines matter because life has a deadline. But if time feels endlessly abundant, does it lose its value? An endless horizon might just invite endless procrastination. Why rush to start that business or write that book today if you literally have 150 years to eventually get around to it? This brings us to a really powerful thought from Ralph Waldo Emerson. He wrote, "It is not length of life, but depth of life." And honestly, that perfectly encapsulates the very core of this entire longevity debate. True meaning isn't simply derived from accumulating more years, or more decades, or more centuries. Meaning is found in how we relate to the experiences we have, the depths of the connections we make, and the sheer awareness we bring to our everyday existence, regardless of the sheer quantity of time we possess. So I want to end this explainer by challenging you with this final thought. We don't have a 200-year guarantee right now. We have a finite, limited amount of time, and that limitation is exactly what gives it its precious value. So stop waiting for some distant sci-fi future to start living. What are you doing with the time you have right now? Are you making it big? Are you making it beautiful? Because whether you live for a moment, a century, or 2, the depth of your life is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.